Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers Preview, our Thursday night show here live on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for joining us. Joining me, as always, is Brian Anthony Davis, our podcast producer. What's going on, Brian?
Happy Thursday. We are now into the fourth month of the year, which means we are less than 30 days to the NFL draft. Christmas.
Very good. Dave Schofield, the other co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. What's up, Dave?
It's exactly 4 weeks from right now. We should be patiently awaiting the Steelers' first pick in the NFL draft.
And we are going to talk about that a lot tonight. Mainly in the second part, we're going to kick things off with that 2021 NFL draft. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, as we always do, for those that maybe just join into the preview because they like the collection of people that join our show. We have a great live chat every Thursday night. If you've never checked us out, if you listen to us on our audio side and you ever want to check us out live, go to youtube.com, search BTSC Steelers Radio, subscribe so that you don't miss any of our PM shows. And we welcome you. And the live chat is amazing. Trust me, great people. So let's get things started with some news. So we always do. Tyson Alualu, or Alualu, however you want to pronounce it. I think Alualu is the actual pronunciation of his name, regardless. What a crazy story that was. And it's something that's been talked about ad nauseum on all of our podcasts. I talked about it on Let's Ride. I know other people like the Scobro Show. They talked about it as well. But he made it official today. He did sign on the dotted line, so we don't have to worry about, is he gonna flip-flop back to Jacksonville? No, he's staying. Guys, how big of a deal is it that Alualu is back? Brian, we'll start with you.
It's a huge deal because it changes a lot of things. It brings structure to that defensive line. You are not worrying about Wormley versus Isaiah Buggs versus Carlos Davis, my dear son. You're not worried about drafting Jalen Twyman in the fourth round where you can possibly get somebody else, because there are a lot of spots, which we're going to be talking about on this show, of need for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think it's absolutely huge. But what makes it bigger for me is the fact that he made a decision based on how much he loves the organization and the city and how much his family loves being here. He was recruited by a defensive line coach who basically said, hey, there's still time. You haven't signed on the line. Think about what you're missing here. So that means that the Pittsburgh Steelers are a destination. And we had a podcast. I'm not sure whether it was Dave who did it or Jeff who did it, saying, is Pittsburgh no longer a prime destination for free agents? So you have two guys in Smith-Schuster and now Alualu who are taking slightly a little bit less. I know it's not as the difference for Alualu wasn't as much as we originally thought on Saturday night, but they're taking less to be in this situation in Pittsburgh, and it's worth it for them. That makes me feel like the organization is a lot more valuable than we think it is right now.
What about you, Dave? You agree with what Brian said, how big of a deal it is that Alualu is back?
Yeah, but you got to think of it this way. All right, how you get there really shapes your narrative. Think about this. The Pittsburgh Steelers finished the regular season in 2020 at 12-4. The problem is that they went 11-0 to start and 1-4 over the last 5 weeks. That's a major difference than going, let's say 2-4 to start the season and rolling off 10 straight wins. Tyson Alualu staying with the Steelers was one of the most, in my opinion, maybe the most important unrestricted free agent that they needed to retain. The fact that they lost him for 10 days, we believed he was gone, and then he was resurrected back to the Steelers.
Oh my gosh.
That's what makes it crazy. That's what makes it such a bigger deal. It's not that they just signed him on the 16th of March when it was reported that he was going to Jacksonville. If they'd have signed him right then, we would be like, oh, yes, we expected Alualu to be back. This is great. It's the fact that we lost him. And it's the whole idea of you never know what you got till it's gone. We knew what it was like for him to be gone. And now he's back. And without missing a snap. So it's a really big deal.
It is a big deal. And you all spoke so eloquently. I have to address some people in the live chat right now. But Dave, you should probably write this article because I'm just going to use nothing but sarcasm and talk about how he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's awful. He's awful. And I said it the other day on my show, and I said it on our Slack channel, and those Aussies down under, they took offense to it. I said, I don't think he's a good cold weather kicker. The punter, think back when they got rid of Colquitt last season, he came back. Everyone's like, wow, Jordan Berry, he actually made it on my winners list a couple times. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the season, what was he doing? Shanking punts again. Why? I think it's because it got cold. So I don't like him. I don't like the fact they brought him back. I'm hoping that he gets cut again. Not a good addition. But I digress. Let's continue.
I can give you some numbers with him.
If it's anything positive, I don't want to hear it.
I'm saying it would only be $100,000 in dead money if they release him, and it would only save $850,000 against the cap. But after displacement, that would be like a whole whopping $70,000.
What a waste! What a waste of money! What a waste of money!
It's not. It's not a waste of money.
Yes,
because it's done in a way that he's. The only way he's going to get this job is if he does a good job. I mean, would you rather go into the season with no punter?
No, it makes sense to have him.
Bring in someone else to beat him out.
Okay, here's the question. I need to jump in here. Jeff.
What?
Colin Holba.
He's my hero. Sepulveda. He's my hero.
Here's Colin the question. Holba. If they go 7B on a punter, if they take the kid from Ohio State that might be the best punter in the draft, but I mean, still in the 7th round, if they do that, are you going to be happy with it? Or are you going to go crazy?
No, I'm crazy. No. Am I going to be happy? I'm not going to be happy until Jordan Berry leaves the Steelers, leaves the 412 area code, and never returns. That's when I'll be happy. Because I was happy last year, and I was like, yay, he's finally gone. And then that weasel found his way back onto the team. I can't. Oh, my God.
You thought that was better than what the Steelers had? In Colquitt during that time?
I did honestly. By the end of the season, there was no difference in Colquitt's performance and Berry. They were both that bad. Berry went down like the rest of the team. When was the last time any Steelers punter, not just Jordan Berry, flipped the field? Think like Sam Cook does for a Coke. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Of the Ravens. I mean, that guy flips the field so many times where you're thinking, man, we got the Ravens a 3-and-out. Here we go. The Steelers are going to have great field position. Nope. 60-yard boot, you're pinned back inside your own 30. The Steelers never get that from their punter. And it's not just a Tomlin thing. It's literally been years. When was the last time the Steelers had a punter that actually could do that? I'll wait.
What I was going to say was to do it regularly. Yeah, that's a great question. But I remember having conversations during games of like, wow, that might have been one of his best punts he's ever had. He completely flipped the field in 2020. So it's not that it never happens. It's that it doesn't happen.
He did it one time.
I'm not arguing.
Remember that one kick that he kicked really good? I'm not arguing
that he's great. But when you have 154 punts inside the 20-yard line with only 18 touchbacks, there you go.
But when you're kicking, if you're kicking from midfield and you're just settling for inside the 20, that's not good.
And he had his best average of his career last year.
All right, so Dave's going to start the Jordan Berry fan club. He will be the charter member.
I'm just saying, I am going to disrupt. Now, if you would have been here arguing that he's great, I would have been bringing up statistics otherwise. That's just what I'm going to do.
Well, let's move on from that horrible punter from down under. So let's talk about a player that is very intriguing to me. He officially, I guess you could say it was official. The first rumored report was, everyone's like, is this really happening? And then another, I would say a better source said that Karl Joseph, the safety who played last season with the Cleveland Browns, did visit the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got excited about this for a lot of reasons, but I want to get your all's take. Brian, Karl Joseph, what are you thinking about this? About him joining the team, joining the secondary? What would it cost? Do you think this is a smart move if they can pull it off?
Oh, it's a beautiful move if they could pull it off. I know Dave's going to talk about finances. I really don't know what they can afford right now because the salary cap right now makes my brain hurt. That's when I have a salary cap question, instead of letting my wheels turn, I just call Dave. That's what I do. I said, Dave, what are we looking at here? Because I just don't get it anymore. Because, you save all this money and like, well, we've got to pay these guys, and these guys. So when they say we're 6 under, we're actually 13 over. So I have no clue. But when it comes to Karl Joseph, he did not look like a first rounder for the Raiders when they brought him in, but he has been hurt. But when he's on the field, he plays pretty well. You're not bringing him in to be a starter, but you've got something hanging over your head right now where you don't know whether you're going to put the attender on both your safeties next year. You don't know whether you're going to do that. You don't know whether they're going to bring him in to bolster as a third safety, which is great in case somebody does get hurt. You don't know what you're going to have there. But that's another thing where if you bring in a guy like Karl Joseph, you're not looking at a James Wiggins in the 4th round. You're not looking for a safety probably whatsoever in this draft. And it would be a good move if they could afford it. It always worries me, though, when a free agent comes to visit and he leaves without a deal.
Yeah, no, you're right. They come in and they leave. Typically, it's numbers didn't match up or whatnot. Dave, what do you think about it?
Yeah, and it's all about the numbers. Do you know how much Karl Joseph made last year as a member of the Cleveland Browns?
Nope.
What would you think? Any idea?
I'd say he made a pretty penny. He was kind of a sought-after free agent, I believe. But I get a feeling that I'm wrong. I feel like it's probably a lot lower than you think. I'm going to say he made 2.5.
Did someone put it in the live chat? I haven't looked. I'm not even on the screen.
Was that right?
That's exactly it.
Yes,
it was 2.5.
Jeff finally gets one right.
Which is good, but not like, wow, blow me away. There's no way they can afford him. Is he looking beyond that or not? Like I put out there in the Slack channel, he's got one career touchdown. Unfortunately, it was in the postseason on a errant Pouncey
touchdown pass from Marquise Pouncey.
Yes, basically.
I think I'm going to say it here first. I think it's time for Marquise Pouncey to retire. So I just want to say that, and we'll be up on that.
You might ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, actually, right now, I would love to have Pouncey back compared to if you want to look at the Steelers center position right now. I would love for him to unretire.
That's not a rip on Pouncey, by the way.
Yeah, no, that was just tongue in cheek. So,
and for everybody correcting me in the live chat, there's a thing called sarcasm.
Yes.
I'm just gonna tell you.
I thought it was pretty thick there, but I guess not.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that honestly, if they could get Karl Joseph, and someone asked me on Twitter, what would that mean for Edmonds? Would they cut Edmonds? No, they wouldn't cut Edmonds, but that might mean that they don't pick up his 5th-year option if they like Karl Joseph to maybe fill in for Edmonds if Edmonds is going to be gone. Here's the thing, the way that the new CBA, and I know Dave would bring this up because he wrote the article for the site, the way that the CBA is structured now, your 5th-year option is based on the success you've had in the league up until that point. Minka Fitzpatrick, who's been an all-pro, he's been Pro Bowler, he's going to make a lot more money than, say, Terrell Edmonds, who hasn't even sniffed either of those accolades. So it's one of those situations where 5th-year option for Edmonds is going to be rather cheap. Maybe Minka Fitzpatrick, you could actually save money by giving him a new contract, signing him to a new deal that would lessen that burden in the first year. I don't know, but I do like Karl Joseph being from West Virginia. I keep an eye on WVU's football team. He went to West Virginia. I liked him coming out of college. I know the Steelers did too. Mike Tomlin spoke very highly of him. And so I wouldn't be shocked. I agree, though, if we don't hear anything on Friday, I think that it's not going to happen. You all agree with that?
You know what? I can't yet because this is such a weird year. Nothing makes sense in 2021 because of the salary cap. One thing that you're seeing a lot of these 1-year deals. So nothing, things that are happening right now that you would never expect. I don't think we would have ever expected Juju to be signing for $8 million. I don't think we ever expected a player to leave and come back. So I really don't know. If this was any other year, I'd say he leaves, it's done. Yeah. But this is crazy. So it's really hard for me to say definitively that it's not going to happen. I would think if you don't hear anything by Monday, then I'd at least give it the weekend.
Dave, you agree with that?
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
It is a different year. It's a different time. And honestly, it depends on why the player's leaving. When they had, what's his name? Hightower and several years ago when they're like, if you leave your offers
Yes.
off the table, because he was taking that offer to go back to New England to get a better deal. Okay. If it's someone who's like, I'm sorry, I refuse to sign a deal unless I talk to my father or my wife or something like that, and the Steelers know that, it's different. Every circumstance is different, and it's hard to say, but Brian's timeline's probably right on. I'd look for tomorrow, but at the latest would be Monday, or it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, the other two players, we're just going to quickly hit on these. It's not really noteworthy. Sean Davis did leave the Steelers in free agency, went to Indianapolis, signed a 1-year deal with the Colts, and also someone that I know I was very hopeful that might make a return back to Pittsburgh. That would be LJ Fort. The Ravens released him due to cap reasons. The Ravens just signed him back to a 1-year contract. So it's lousy that LJ Fort couldn't come back and help bolster the inside linebacker depth, but not going to happen this year. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast, the headline of this podcast, which is Steelers team needs. I don't know why I like talking about this so much. I just love it. I think it's interesting to know where other fans, and that includes the three of us that are hosting this show, where we all reside in terms of what is the most important position for you, this team moving forward. Now, remember, this could be in not just the draft. So this is not just talking about draft team needs. This could be a trade. This could be a free agent acquisition if there's a player still out there at that particular position. The only thing that I'm going to ask from you, gentlemen, and Dave knows this because he was on my Let's Ride to talk about it, is we're not going to do a cop-out and say, I think the number one team need is the offensive line. No. Pick a position.
Be specific.
Don't say even interior offensive line. It's center or guard, all right? If they can do both, that's great, but we want to know what position you really think is the most important. Again, don't say defensive line or secondary or defensive back. Let's be specific.
Linebacker.
Exactly. Yeah. Inside, outside, edge, whatever. You can label it however you like. We know how the Steelers label their players based on their defense. So let's do this. We're going to do one at a time. We're going to do our top 5 team needs. We'll see where time gets us. We might have to take a break in there, in which case it's not the end of the world. Let's start with you, Brian. Entering this second wave of free agency and the upcoming NFL draft, what would be the top team need for you? What position?
Now, let me preface this with, this is not who I'm saying the Steelers are going to take number 1 in the draft, but they do need a running back that has to be addressed. And it has got to be addressed in the first 4 rounds. A lot of people want it higher. You could bring a running back in. You brought Kellen Ballage. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Is it Kellen Ballage?
I was told it's Ballage. I was told it was Ballage.
Like the Bellagio.
Yeah.
Like Bellagio.
Oh,
if you guys watch Scobro Show, you would know that.
I've got a 2 a.m. story from the Bellagio, but that's for another time. Oh gosh, Vegas, baby. But you know, they've got to go ahead and take a running back. Dave was writing an article, and it came out yesterday, and it came out right when Ballage was signed.
1 minute.
One
It
minute.
really was.
1 minute right there.
No joke.
But Dave, my question is to you: was Ballage the answer that you thought?
No.
Okay, so what I'm saying here is that's a guy to fill a room.
Yeah.
Think Wendell Smallwood from last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they brought him in. You never saw him on the roster. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Ballage. Ballage filled in really well when Austin Eckler went down in Los Angeles. But what I'm saying here is this team needs a feature back. I don't think you're going to get it in free agency. I don't think you're going to get that feature back outside round number 2. And you're going to be lucky to get him in round number 2. If you're looking at the big 3, then you got to take one early. If that's what you deem, if you're Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin, the Rooneys, Omar Khan, the guy in section 123, you know, you probably need to know that you've got to go get a running back early. I don't think you're going to find that running back in free agency right now, but that's your number 1 need.
All right. So you have running back first. Dave, what's yours?
Center. Because even though they have 2 bodies, they need much better quality to be the starter at that position. And I think it starts there. I'm going with that as number 1.
I'm going to agree with Dave. My number one need is a center. I just think that BJ Finney and or JC Hasnauer, I feel like they're one and the same in terms of the type of player that they are, their capabilities of being that guy. I don't like it at all. But on top of that, what scares me is that if they're thinking about just going after a center in the NFL draft, I'm not crazy about this draft class at center either. There's a lot of question marks. I don't think any of them is necessarily. I don't necessarily think that this group is anyone that I would take in the first round of the draft.
I know what you mean.
Day 2, second round, 55, possible. I just don't know if any of those players are day 1 starters, and that's what scares me. I don't know if there's anyone. What are you going to say, Dickerson? Humphrey?
No, I was going to say Humphrey is probably shooting up people's boards with the way he tested. I don't like people that shoot up boards because of testing. I like the tape. I like what they've done. So that could be an issue. I can't tell you who, but what I would like nothing more is for the Steelers to get a center in their second round pick. But if they had to go first, it would then depend on what they could do in the second. We'll get there. This is only the first one I mentioned.
Okay.
So
all right.
Okay, let me jump in real quick because this is the problem with this entire thing. Wes, I love you, but top needs center, and that's not even a debate. No, this is a debate. And the reason it's a debate is this is who I think running back is the need. Now, when I go to draft, and I've been doing mock draft simulations like crazy, I'm addicted to it. And I'm making sure I'm always getting a center in the second or third round. If I slip to 4, it's Trey Hill from Georgia if he's there. So there's some guys I like. But there's a lot more needs than just one. But this is where I think that they are lacking the most at running back. They're lacking at center. But there's going to be avenues where you can get a few of these guys if you do it right.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. And like I said, remember, this isn't just the NFL draft. Let's keep that in mind. I've said that I'd be open if there's a team that has a center they're trying to ship. If you can make a trade work, hell, do it. Because I'd rather I said it a million times, give me a Jeff Hardings type. End of their career, looking for a few good years in the sun left. Get that player that's possible. So let's go to the second. Brian, you said running back first. What's your second team need?
All right. My second team need is inside linebacker.
All right. Want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't care if you've got Devin Bush there and Robert Spillane. I think you want to bring a guy in that you know that you can trust. Now, this is it. This is the thing here. You need to bring a guy in for depth. We saw what depth did to the inside linebacking core last year. It killed it because not only did Bush go down, Spillane went down too. And then you're relying on Avery Williamson, which if Avery Williamson comes in camp, he's a lot better Avery Williamson than what you do get when you're not starting him until like November 16th. Not starting, you're not even really putting him in the lineup until November 16th because they put him in November 9th against Dallas. He couldn't do much of anything. He just got there. In fact, he was on the COVID watch list because he had a quarantine coming in, couldn't do much with the team. They need to have somebody in there. So you got to bring another inside linebacker in. I like the fact that Spillane is there for depth. Do you want him as a full-time starter? Can he be a full-time starter? Possibly. But if you're looking at one of these studs, and I'm talking the main stud, Zaven Collins, that's a guy that could change your whole world. If you decide that you want to go with him number 1 and you find a guy at number 2 that could be a top running back, a guy at number 3 that could be a top center. But if you bring back a guy like Avery Williamson, you have more depth and you know he can start too. So I kind of like the inside linebacker there. Trust me, I want a center and that's coming up on my list, but this is how I'm looking at it.
It's your list. You can have it however you want. No one's going to yell at you. Hey,
really? No one's going to.
Okay, let me get this live the super chat here. Shane Van Hayden gave us $5. So congrats to BTSC for making it to Jerry Dulac's live chat transcript recently. Love the channel. Thank you.
Do you guys know anything what he's talking about?
No. We'll have to ask Michael. I know Michael's a PG guy. He's the Post Gazette. He always reads that stuff. Once they once they've made a paywall, I stopped. I'm cheap. What can I say? Yeah. All right, Dave, go ahead. Your second team need.
Okay, well, I just want to yell at Brian's because no, I'm sorry. I guess I'm not allowed to do that. And sorry if my connection was a little bit spotty earlier. Our internet was out today, and here I wasn't on the right Wi-Fi channel.
You're good to go.
All right, so I'm back. I'm good. Okay, number two, I'm going to say running back because what I'm looking at is I'm trying to look at position by position. Are the Steelers the same, better, or worse than last year? And right now, running back was not good last year, and I don't think they're as good as what they were last year right now. So I don't think bringing in Balaj was an answer. I don't think, and I'm not saying that, you should bring back James Conner so you at least have what you had last year, because even Art Rooney II admitted that's not good enough. I'm still not saying they have to go draft. They could see if they could find someone else out there. The pickings are slim. I'm assuming it's going to be draft. And I'm fine with it being draft, but they've got to do something to address the running back position.
I'm not disagreeing with running back. I think it deserves to be there, but shockingly, I'm actually going to go offensive tackle. I think that this is a really deep class. If you're looking at the NFL draft to address tackle, you could probably find a quality tackle in the second or even third rounds if you really want. And let's be honest, Chuks Okorafor, if he's considered one of your bookend tackles for this season, after this season, he's a free agent. And so, yeah, you have Banner on a 2-year deal. You kind of want to find that, whether it's a Marcus Gilbert, you want to try to find, not Mike Adams, but you definitely want to try to find a tackle in this draft that could be your next tackle for the long term. You want that long-term answer, whether it's left or right tackle, doesn't matter. I'm going offensive tackle with my second team need. All right, let's go to 3, and then after 3, we'll take a quick break, and we'll finish up after the break. Brian, we'll start with you. What's your third on the list of team needs in terms of position?
This is where I'm going with center. It's very important, and I get it. I just think you could throw it down the list a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, this is why you can't, because it's so much worse than it was last season. That's why it's number 1 for me. Me, for number 3, believe it or not, I'm going tight end, because if you look at the group that they have now, it's not as good as it was last season with the retirement of Vance McDonald. You need to do something. You need to sign a Jesse James or draft somebody in the draft. I don't know that Gentry's ready to be the number 2. I don't know that Kevin's Rader's ready to be the number 2. I'd actually argue that Rader might be closer than Gentry right now, especially as hard as he was playing on special teams. But they need to do something there, because they lost and they haven't gained anything.
Let me ask you this question, because I honestly don't know. If you all check the website behindthesealcurtain.com, I do these breakdowns. I'm literally going like by position. I'm getting people that just Steeler fans are talking about, and I'm learning these prospects as I go. Haven't looked at any tight ends. I know of Pitts, but he's going to be like a top 10 pick, everyone's saying, from Florida. How's this tight end class? I've heard about the tight end from Penn State. The Steelers were obviously, they were very interested in him at their pro day. Is this a deep tight end class?
I don't think it really is. I don't know that they're going to, I don't know that the draft is the place to add another tight end, honestly. And what's great, like my article said, if you could add a free agent and then take that position completely off the board. The Steelers did it with tight end last year. Thought tight end was going to be a position of high need. They go out and get Ebron, then it's not anymore. To me, they can't go into this season with just Ebron and the two guys that I put as almost the equivalent of practice squad guys. They need to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go with linebacker as my
cheater.
Inside linebacker.
Okay, inside linebacker.
I'm
sorry. Breaking your own rules, Jefferson.
I'm sorry. The inside linebacker, I'm going to go because I think that, like Brian said earlier, I think it was Brian, that the depth is just not there. And that's why I was so fingers crossed hoping that LJ Fort would somehow find his way back to Pittsburgh, because I think if you would put Fort in that mix with Spillane, maybe Ulysses Gilbert III, you throw him in with Devin Bush, obviously. Now all of a sudden you have a pretty good group, and you wouldn't need to worry about Zaven Collins necessarily right away in the first round. But I think that inside linebacker needs to be addressed at some point. That's why I have it at third. So when we come back after this break, we're going to be talking about our 4th and 5th. Then we're going to be focusing specifically on the draft. So if you're listening in audio form, make sure you check out part 2. If you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, don't go anywhere, because we aren't going anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining me, as always, Brian Anthony Davis, our podcast producer, and Dave Schofield, the other co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Brian found, if you were listening to the show, there was a super chat, $5 about the comment in the Post-Gazette, and Brian found it. Brian, do you want to read it? Do you want me to read it?
You know what? You can go ahead and read it, and I'll also paste it up here for you too for the live chat too. But go ahead and read it.
All right. So basically, someone asked Jerry. I read an article this morning behind the steel curtain. The article suggested that the Steelers' defense could be better next year because Mike Hilton and Vince Williams were weak links. I believe that was written by our own Shannon White. Do you share the same thoughts? Jerry Dulac writes, "I don't read that stuff." Thanks a lot, Jerry. Piece of garbage. Anyways,
I don't read Jerry stuff.
So I don't read that stuff. But his point might be that Williams was a two-down player who was a liability in coverage, and that Hilton was routinely picked on by opposing quarterbacks because of his size and inability to get underneath receivers. There you go. So,
he agreed. Basically.
All right. So if by chance you accidentally clicked on the wrong podcast and you're listening to part 2 and you're wondering, wow, I missed 1 through 3, I would tell you to go back and listen to the first part, but let's rehash here. Team needs, we're doing our top 5. We've gone through 1, 2, and 3. Brian's top 3 were running back 1, inside linebacker 2, center 3. Dave's were center 1, running back 2, tight end 3. Mine was center 1, offensive tackle 2, inside linebacker 3. So now we head over to 4th, and we'll start with Brian again. Brian, what's your 4th team need?
All right. I like to think outside the box here, so I'm going with sideline reporter.
BJ Finney.
We already took care of the BJ Finney thing. No, so it's not sideline reporter. No, I got to go corner, guys. Look, Joe Hayden. I love the guy. I still think they're going to try to extend him a little bit more. But what if they don't? What if they can't? Then with gosh, I forgot his name already, Steven Nelson, with him being gone, you have a gap there. So you need to bring some younger blood in there. Remember, Cameron Sutton is going into his 5th season. So with that, you're looking at some guys here that you might not have much of a cornerback stable. So I would actually here, I think you're better off going, if you could find the money to pay for it, you're better off going for a Brian Poole from the New York Jets or going in a free agency. There are some guys in free agency that might be affordable here that you could bring in right now. There's Richard Sherman's out there. Whether you think he's washed up or not, that's a name out there. The list corner right now, it's a bigger list of names than a lot of other positions with the free agents that are remaining. So I would probably look at, if you want to bring in an older guy like that, a 1-year deal, or if you want to try to get 2 or 3 out of Poole, if that's possible at a good price. Those are guys that I would look at bringing in, and there's more out there. It's just not these guys. Now, when you're looking on the draft side of it, there are not, the big guys like Caleb Farley, they're going to go early. There's not a lot out there in rounds 2, 3, and 4. There's a few like Taylor and Rodarius Williams. There's some guys out there, but I think you need to address that in free agency more, but you got to address corner.
Let's be honest here, and this is something that PJ commented in the live chat. They said Steelers do not know how to draft quarterbacks. They don't have a good track record. We'll put it that way. I think what they do have a good track record of is finding some of these free agent players and turning them into guys that get better deals after they leave. Think about Cody Sensabaugh. Think about, was it Bryce McCain, I believe? Didn't he go to Houston on a deal? I'm sure we can think of some other names of cornerbacks. Ross Cockrell. I don't know if that was a trade or if he was.
No, he was a free agent pickup. And of course, Joe Hayden is in that.
He was a waiver wire pick.
Right. They cut him. Yeah.
Okay.
They were trying to sneak him on the practice squad. That's when Rex Ryan was coaching in Buffalo. And
that's right.
Him onto the practice squad, and Steelers said nope.
So the Steelers are more of a reclamation project cornerback group than they are necessarily drafting. So that might be an avenue that you're talking about. All right, Dave, go ahead. What's your number 4?
Number 4, that's when I'm going to go with offensive tackle. Okay. Because even though you have basically 3 guys right now. You've got Chooks, you've got Banner, you've got Haig. Haig couldn't get the job, couldn't win the job in Tampa. He was just the reserve swing tackle. So I don't know that he's going to push one of the other guys out. And if he does, that's not good. That's because they're not getting the job done. So I think there's just so many question marks there that it wouldn't hurt to have more.
I agree. And, when you look at 4, because obviously I had offensive tackle 2 on my list, I'm going to go with 4. I'm going to go with running back. And I think there is value at the running back position in the draft, even in the later rounds. No, it's not one of the big 3 in Harris, Etienne, or Williams, but still, there's still some value out there. And if they don't get one early, I don't want fans thinking that they still can't find a running back that can still be a day 1 impact player, because I think those still exist. And if there's a position that has been proven that you can have a player that is mid-rounds that does come in and start right away, not necessarily start, but contributes right away, it's running back. So I have running back 4. All right, let's finish this up with a 5th team need. Brian, we'll go with you. Go ahead.
I did like Dave's tight end. I'm just not putting that in the top 5 because I can't.
You're talking about the football position.
I've seen the other one. It's not that tight, Dave. But it's not what I'm talking about. I like his selection of a tight end. But I've got to go with offensive tackle too. And I really think he could be higher, but you do have some flexibility with the 2 guys that you have in there. You have to address it. You have to address it early on the draft. But I'm putting it at number 5 for everything else that I think is more crucial. They're all crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, what's your 5th?
I want to point out something. Have you noticed my top 4 have all been on offense?
I have.
Yes. So now it's time to go to the other side of the ball and show that it's what Brian going inside linebacker so high was foolish, because what they need more than that is edge rusher, because they've only got 2. I mean, I'm sorry, they have Cassius Marsh as a 3rd one.
Pokemon
he's a special teams guy. Love him for special teams. Don't want him to be that 3rd guy that's going to be a rotational piece. I'm not saying they have to draft this position high. I'm not saying they have to do it in the draft. They could. I think they're better off in the draft, because the problem with free agent edge rushers is if you're good, you're going to cost a ton. So that is a position I would like for them to address in the draft, and it doesn't have to be high. I'm not, oh my goodness. Did you guys see Michael Beck shared it on Twitter? PFF had the Steelers going edge rusher 1, edge rusher 2 with both Creed Humphrey and all 3 running backs on the board in round 2, and had them taking a 2nd edge rusher. Sorry, I had to bring that up.
No, it's fine.
But they do. I think they can't go into the season with what they have right now. That would be worse than the year that they only kept 3 and the 3rd one was Anthony Chickillo. This would be worse than that. So you've got to add, it doesn't have to be an all-star player. You just need the depth, and they need more depth. The bigger need on defense is depth at edge rusher than at anywhere else, including inside linebacker.
I'm going to agree. I have edge outside linebacker as my 5th, because I think it is an important need. But you know what's interesting here is that none of us had quarterback. None of us had quarterback on our list. Now my first team needs, though, this is before Ben had committed and redid his contract. I had quarterback number 1, and I said they need to trade up. And if they did do that, and it would shock the heck out of me, I'd be fine with it. I'd be absolutely fine with it. But let me ask you real quick before we get into my next question. Real quick. Do you all think this is Ben's last year? Brian, yes or no?
No.
Dave?
I think it completely depends on how this year plays out.
That's a good point. If they win a Super Bowl by chance, do you think he's done, rides off into the sunset?
Honestly, I think he's more likely to come back if they win a Super Bowl.
Really?
Because if they win a Super Bowl, it's going to be because he leads them there, and that means he can still play at a high level. I don't think it has anything to do with going out on top. I don't think it has anything to do with going out, with a dud. I think it has everything to do with, does he feel like he can play at an appropriate level? And if they win the Super Bowl, he's playing at that level. Now, Unless they pull the Denver Broncos Super Bowl where they win in spite of their quarterback because of their defense. If it's that kind of scenario, then I can see it. It all really comes down to Ben's play this year.
If Ben gets to number 3, you know he's going for number 4 because of Terry
TV,
Bradshaw.
yep.
I know they had to sit down and they ironed everything out. Oh man, he owns every record. You don't think that he wants number 4 to kind of move Terry Bradshaw aside? I guarantee it. If something happens that they win it, he is back and there's no pulling him away.
All right, we can talk about that as it goes, but that just came up and I was thinking about no one put quarterback on their list. So let's go to this. Another little shot in the dark here. Think about the 2021 NFL draft. Now, the team needs could be with free agency, could be via trade, could be anything. But looking at the NFL draft, I want you all to tell me, just with the draft, if you were to try and throw a dart and hit your dartboard, what position do you want the Steelers to pick at pick 24? They're not trading. They're not going back. They're not going forward. What position do you, if you were to say, man, I really wish they got this position. I don't even need a player. I just need a position. Brian, what do you think?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard. I only want one inside linebacker, so I'm going to take that off the board. There's only one guy that I want. So I'm actually going to go running back.
Okay, now I have to ask, out of the big 3, which do you like the most?
Here's the problem with this is I kind of like Etienne a lot, and I really like Javonte Williams. I really think everyone's going to jump. Oh, you're not going to get Javonte at 55. Everybody's saying you're not going to get this guy here. You're not going to get this guy here. Well, guys, if nobody's going to drop in the draft, are we going to have 67 first-round picks? No. People are going to drop to the second round, and it's going to happen. We saw it with running backs. Ideally, what I really wanted to see the Steelers do is get that running back in the second round. I just don't know if they're absolutely going to be able to do it. So if I had to pick one, I think the number 1 guy for this team because of his speed would be Etienne, but I would be thrilled with Williams.
And we'll get Harris.
I was going to say, I got to agree with Brian. Harris is actually my third. Not that I have a problem with him, but
no, he would still be really good. I think all 3 of those players.
I actually trust the Steelers' decision of who they like the best on this more than my own.
Yeah. All right, but Dave, if you were to answer the same question, what position do you say, man, I really wish they could get that position?
All right, I'm going to tell you before I answer this question that I'm the one who put that. Who convinced Brian Anthony Davis, and he's admitted this, about the whole inside linebacker and that one specific player. We had a big conversation about it, and then, of course, he's gone on and looked at more. I've gone on and looked at more. It's funny because I am okay if the Steelers draft a position in the first round that was not even in my top 5 team needs, because ultimately we know that's what the Steelers do. They try to shape their team that they don't have major needs, that they have to take a certain position. I have no idea what I want the Steelers to draft in round 1. Honestly, it all depends on how it falls, because bottom line is, if there's someone great that falls and the Steelers can't draft them because they have to take their running back because they're not going to make it to round 2, then I'm going to be mad that they passed up someone else that they could have had amazingly at 24, like what happened with David DeCastro, at 24, because they have to go running back. That's my biggest fear. So I'm saying, I honestly and truthfully, the number 1 position I want in round 1 is BPA.
Oh gosh, Dave.
Boo. Cop out.
Boo.
I agree with you, but that's a cop-out.
I'll answer the question. I want a running back. I want them to take a running back. I wrote an article about it, how I don't think it's such a bad thing. Everyone's like, oh, no, you don't want a running back in the first round. Why? You can technically draw it up that you would get the 6 years of their career under contract with the franchise tag, the 5th-year option. And if you have a really good one, you're going to get the best years from them. And after that, you could cut ties with them. I like all 3 of the top running backs as well. If they were to get Harris, Etienne, or Williams, I'd be ecstatic with all of them. I think that all three of those players, especially Etienne, our Cliff Harris is still a punk, convinced me that Etienne's the guy that in Matt Canada's system could be transcendent and could really make this offense completely different. But I think all three could do that as well. So that's just my own personal opinions there. I want to get to some super chats here before we lose them. Alfred said he gives us $4.99. Thank you very much. He says, how do we go from Ben wanting multiple Super Bowls to not knowing if it's his last year? He seems like he wants to come back for multiple years. I agree. I think that the way that he has talked, and he being Ben Roethlisberger, that he's absolutely wants to come back and play more, but it's whether the Steelers want him to come back and play more. I think a lot of it depends on Canada's system. How does he fit? Guys, what do you think, Brian?
I just think it comes down to the fact that he's back and he's never going to go away unless you make him go away. I think that's really the thing about it. But if he plays well, great news. You really can't lose on the Ben thing here because you did not have a better alternative.
Yeah.
And you can't. You don't. So I hope that's not a Seattle has 2 losses answer because I wasn't really paying attention. But I will say that I don't think
you played it off
you can go wrong.
Much better than you did when Seattle had 2 losses.
That might have been one of the funniest moments, by the way, because we weren't even talking about that. And we're like, what do you think? Yeah, Seattle has 2 losses. Like, what? Is he here right now? Anyways, we'll leave it at that. Dave, do you have any comments on that, or is that good enough?
I kind of said my piece about Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
It really, and when I say the season he has, it's also going to be, is he working in this system? That's going to be part of it as well. So that's the only thing I have to add to it.
Yeah. Evgeny Crosby, good name. The Penguins win big 4-1 tonight over the Boston Bruins. So they're playing some great hockey. Ever since Super Bowl 45, injuries have destroyed the Steelers. We need a healthy team going into the playoffs first and foremost. You can't disagree with that. You really can't. History, it shows that more. It's crazy how much, whether you think about like Devin Bush and Bud Dupree last year going down with ACLs and Spillane also getting banged up. It's just crazy. So health is going to be very, very important. Okay. I was looking on SB Nation, in case people don't know that, Behind the Steel Curtain, and this podcast platform is a part of SB Nation, which is a part of Vox Media, and DraftKings. We don't use DraftKings in our little league. We use FanDuel. That's neither here nor there. DraftKings, they have an agreement with SB Nation, we'll put it that way, and they have their own gambling odds site, a part of DraftKings and a part of SB Nation. And they did recently put out over-under the win totals, projected win totals for each team. So I normally do over-under during the regular season. I have a lot of fun. Sometimes it's just some random numbers that I think up in my head. But here's their number. I didn't make this over-under. They did. I want to get your house take. I was kind of surprised here.
Out of 17, remember.
Out of 17, 8.5. They have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 8.5. Brian, are you going
not a
over,
losing season?
Are you going over or under?
I'm going over because this is going to be an adjustment. When I saw somebody put in the live chat that this team's a 7-10 team, and you got to think about it. With it, I really think that this is, at worst, a 9-win team. If everything comes together and things come together, and they've done that over the years, so I expect at least 9 wins, because remember, when you throw in 9 wins, that's still 8 losses. That's still a lot of losses. So,
Dave, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, when we always talk about 9 and 7? What's the new thing now? Is it
9 and 8, or is it
9 and 8, or is it 10 and 7?
I hate the 17 game stuff. It's gonna
9, 7,
it's gonna mess up everything with me. Like, I even on my Let's Ride tomorrow morning, I said 10 and 6 because I completely forgot that the Steelers had a 17th game this year. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know. 9 and 8 probably sounds a little bit better. Dave, what do you say? Over under?
I'm going to go over, but kind of like Brian, I'm going to say not by much. They have the hardest schedule in the NFL, and honestly, I like that. I like them having a harder schedule than an easier schedule. How many times have we talked about this, that this team comes together better when they're playing a quality opponent than when they play someone that they're supposed to go out and smash. So I've seen it over and over again where they rise to the occasion. That's what I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping that their biggest offensive woes last year were scheme. And therefore I'm going to just throw out 10-7 and get into the playoffs, get there, but be battle tested. So that way you can make a run.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago on my morning podcast, I'm not supposed to talk about on this show. I apologize. I said a bold prediction was that the Steelers would have double-digit wins, and that was even before the 17th game was made official. And I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to take the over here. I think the Steelers at least win 10 games. I agree with Dave. I think they play up to their competition, not down. And you know what? I still like a lot of the stuff that this team is going to have next season. I honestly think the defense is going to be really good still. Yeah, you lose Dupree and Hilton, but I still think this defense is going to be really good. And there's a lot of other reasons to have some optimism about this team. Are they going to go 16-1? No. Could they win double digits, make the playoffs, and maybe make some noise? Absolutely, I think they could. So that's an interesting. I thought 8.5 was pretty low. If I were setting that number, it would have been 9.5 probably. But then again, you're trying to make people push some money around. I feel like if I'm seeing 8.5, I'm definitely pushing the over. But sometimes Vegas knows better than we do. So, all right, Dave, do you have some trivia?
Yes, I do. Actually, I have two that are very closely related, and that's because I ended up going down a rabbit hole once I got the one. And the one came courtesy of one Jeffrey Benedict. He kind of sent this my way. I looked into it and confirmed some stuff with it. And it's kind of crazy. He brought it to my attention that he said since 1992, I even checked, since 1990, when we're talking about the Steelers and the NFL draft, we're talking about taking running backs and wide receivers. And since 1990, the Steelers have only drafted a running back ahead of a wide receiver where they took that running back in the first 4 rounds 3 times. Every other time, it's always been the wide receiver first. Do you know the 3 running backs drafted in the 4th round or higher since 90 that the Steelers drafted before taking a wide receiver?
Well, I'll say Rashard Mendenhall, assuming they took a receiver at some point in that draft. He's a first-round pick.
No, it doesn't matter if they took one later or not. I'm just saying they took a running back before a receiver, and they took him in the first 4 rounds.
Le'Veon Bell.
So it's Rashard Mendenhall,
Le'Veon
Bell.
Tree Archer.
No.
Oh, he was a 3rd-round pick, wasn't he?
Yes, but
okay, it had to be in the first 2 rounds.
I know why that didn't show up, because I did that article today. So you could say, technically, you could say 4, and here's why. They have Tree Archer listed as a wide receiver.
Oh.
So I'll give you that one.
I thought he was,
because I noticed that today. I listed him as a running back in my article, but Pro Football Reference and other places has Tree Archer listed as a wide receiver.
No, the guy after Archer was Martavis Bryant.
Yes, he was right after him. So that's why that one didn't show up when Jeffrey did that search and sent it to me that way. I'd be surprised if you get the 3rd one.
Okay, wait. Say again. What's the time? What's the time parameter? Because
since 90,
since 90,
and they drafted a running back in the first 4 rounds and did not take a receiver before running back. Jeffrey sent me this just to show me how much they value wide receivers so much more than running back. So. And I'll say technically they're running back, because you could argue this one as well, because they had Tree Archer as a wide receiver. This one, yeah, he's a running back, but so's Derek Watt.
John Whitman.
It was John Whitman in 1996. They took him. They took him in the 3rd round.
He gave it away to me. So.
Yeah. Well, no, you could have gone somewhere else. But the other question I had with that is, this is great. Do you know how many NFL drafts the Steelers have done? They started what year did they start drafting? It was 37? Is that when it was William Shakespeare? Or 36, right? So how many NFL drafts is that? That's 80 They've had 85 drafts. This will be their 86th draft. Do you realize how many of those drafts do you think the Steelers did not draft either a running back or a wide receiver?
Out of 86?
Yeah. Well, 85 so far. This will be
85. Okay.
How many drafts do you think they
Either?
did? Either one of them, either a running back or a wide receiver. They passed on both of them.
5.
Brian?
I'll just go 6.
2.
Oh.
2. Well, you got to think back in the day when there were 1,700 rounds and they were drafting, 25 players, they were going to do one. 2. Do you have any idea what years they are? I'll tell you, they're both since the merger.
They didn't draft either a running back or a receiver.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I think you should get one of them. You could maybe get one of them.
What was the year they drafted all defense? I think it basically felt like every single player was a defender. It's kind of recently. Am I right there, Dave? Am I in the right path or no?
I'm going to say they drafted because the one that's more recent did not have more defenders.
I don't know.
I thought Brian might know this.
No, I don't.
Okay, well, the first one came after a year where they drafted 5. I think it was 3 receivers and 2 running backs that they drafted in 1984. And then in 1985, they drafted none. The other one, 2004.
That's correct. Yeah.
When they drafted Ben Roethlisberger, they did not take a running back or a wide receiver in that draft class.
Just despite Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, even the year they traded up to draft. Despite even the year they traded up in the draft to draft Alualu and only had 5 picks that year, they still drafted. I'm pretty sure it was running back. Crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. Brian, do you have any trivia tonight, or are you?
I actually do.
Oh, go for it.
So from 1992 to 1995, the Steelers had a pipeline to a certain college when it comes to picking near the top of the draft. Do you happen to know what college that is?
92 to 95. 92 to 95.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
No, I don't know that. Well, they've drafted Notre Dame more than anywhere else, according to Brian.
That's what
I
Brian
know that
said.
one.
That's why I guess that.
So, 92 to 95. That's not my wheelhouse, if you know what I mean.
Well, I will tell you this. The
hold on, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Is it Notre Dame?
No, it is not.
Okay. Then
can I just start spitting out schools? I'm just going to start
go
naming
for
them. Penn State.
You're not going to get it if you're just throwing out schools.
I don't know. What is it?
Colorado.
It is the University of Colorado.
Hey,
you know what I started thinking of?
Cordell Stewart.
Well, Joel Steed, Chad Brown.
Okay, wait, hold on a second.
Right?
They had 2 first-round picks. This is my second half of it. They had 2 first-round picks, 2 number 2s, and a number 3.
Okay. Well, I gave you the 3 in Steed, right?
Yes, Steed's your number 3.
Was Brown a 1 or a 2?
Brown was a 2.
Brown was a 2. Stewart was a 2.
Yep. And they're the 2 number 1s.
Oh, Jeff, come on. Help me. You know this. They took Stewart the year after they took a receiver that he had thrown to. Who was it?
So I'm drawing a blank here. I'm thinking of
because they you remember what I'm saying? They had taken a receiver high the year before, and then they took Stewart, who was his quarterback the next year.
someone put in the live chat Charles Johnson.
That's it, Charles Johnson. That's one of them. That's got to be right.
Yeah,
is that right, Brian?
Yeah, that is. And
okay.
I'm gonna help you guys out. This is probably gonna help Jeff out more, but I'm gonna say 2 words to see if you can get this one. Surprise onside.
Surprise onside. You're talking about the 95 Super Bowl 30. Is it the player that recovered it?
The player that recovered it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, Dave?
Was it Deion Figures?
That's what I was going to guess.
Yeah.
It's Deion
Deion
Figures.
Figures.
I didn't know he went to Colorado.
Yeah, they had a.
He was a first-round pick. That was what we were missing.
So in '93, they went 1 and 2 from Colorado. Figures and Chad Brown.
Man,
Wow.
The next year in '94, they went number 1 to Colorado, and they went a number 2 in a number 2 with Cordell.
Yeah.
And Steed was, I believe, 92, which was a third-round pick.
man,
That's
a good say. That's good
and
stuff.
now is there anyone that we know from Colorado that's high up there this year's draft? I couldn't tell you.
They lost that pipeline a long time ago.
Yeah. All right, let's do some final thoughts here. Brian, go ahead. We'll start with you.
All right, I did accuse Dave of copping out earlier, and I do want to apologize for that because we are great buddies. The three of us really get along, but we're going to joust like that. But you could accuse me of being a cop out with one of my final thoughts, and my final thought is this: when we're talking about the first round of the NFL draft, the Steelers could go in a lot of places and do very well. This is kind of a little bit of a Rubik's Cube. It's just where you decide to go with each position. If the guy's there, it's going to work. You just have to come out with a perfect combination to get there. So they can go center in the first round and make it work. Unless they decide that, hey, they really love Trey Hill for the fourth round. They can go with another position like running back if they think they can get that guy in the second round. If they don't think that they can get Zaven Collins in the first round, or they want to do something else and put maybe Creed Humphrey in the first round or the running back in the first round, but they really want that linebacker and they scouted this guy this week, they go in the third round for a guy like Chaz Surratt from North Carolina. So there's so many different combinations for them to go. I really trust the Steelers when it comes to drafting. I have had a friend that tried to call me out the other day on a text chain saying that the Steelers don't draft cornerbacks well. That was said in the live chat tonight. I came back with him with a few names that you're forgetting about the Keenan Lewises of the world. You're forgetting about the William Gays. You're forgetting about some things. And we talked about that. But he went on to say that the Steelers just don't draft well, which is one of the most ludicrous things I've ever heard, because the Steelers probably have, I'd love to do the numbers on this. I just don't have the time. I don't even think the stat geek, Dave Schofield, has the time to do the numbers to see who the best drafting team of the last 20 years was, because that would probably take forever. I would love to see it, though. Challenge accepted, Dave. But anyway.
No, you guys made me compare Pittsburgh and New England last year.
And Pittsburgh did better than New England, right?
Yeah, slightly. Yeah, they were. Yeah, but and if you look at certain positions, it's not even close.
So you know what? Get all of those preconceived notions out of their head. If they find a quarterback in a corner in the first round that they love, trust them. Now, hopefully they're not going to make the mistake where they take the sixth cornerback on the board, like an Artie Burns, in the first round. That is when you don't draft best player available. You draft a position. And if they do that, they're going to be in trouble. But if the Steelers draft higher, they're not going to pass up on a Jalen Ramsey if they were drafting up there. If they had a chance to get a Jalen Ramsey, they would have taken a guy like that. They are not in a position to take a corner high, and that's why you're getting some lower players there. But when it comes to drafting, they know who they're getting. Last year, everybody went crazy when they saw the name Highsmith come up. No one is going to say that they don't like Highsmith now. Trust these guys. They have a scouting department. Jeff Hartman, Dave Schofield, Brian Anthony Davis, and everybody in this live chat does not have a scouting department working out of their living room. It's just not possible. I don't see any of you at the pro days. So with that being said, these guys have it. And it's going to be another good draft. This is a deep enough draft where they can fill 1 through 5, if they do it smart, really, really well.
Very well said. Real quick before we get to the Dave's final thoughts, Tyler W. $2 says, "What day are the signups for the live chat mock draft?" Tyler, I will let you all know that. I have to speak with the gentleman who sets that up. It's not me, and I don't know when he's planning on doing that or how he's doing that. Do you know, Dave?
The live chat mock draft. That's Brian's thing that he does on his show.
Oh, that's what you're talking
Brian
about.
did last
Oh,
year, right?
Well, I thought you were talking about on the website because that's
Yes.
totally different. Brian, do you know when you're doing that then?
So we're probably going to have we're probably going to start soliciting for that around 3 weeks before the draft.
So this week then. Meaning this coming Monday.
Wow.
It'll be 3 weeks before the draft.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll start soliciting for that. We'll get the list. I will give you the email address or the Twitter address that we're going to want you to send that. Just wait until then to send them out. The first 31 spots get a pick. No one gets number one this year. I'm not making that mistake with somebody not picking Joe Burrow in the first round or somebody not taking with the first pick or somebody not taking.
Didn't Burrow go like 5? That was funny.
Yeah. It kind of messed everything up and it kind of made it not realistic because somebody was trying to be creative or just trying to be funny, but it kind of ruined the draft. So Trevor Lawrence is going to be our number one pick. I'm just making that call because it's my draft. So we're going to have that. That is going to be the week of the draft is when it's going to take place. So the Monday before the draft, but 2 Mondays before the draft, we are going to have on the Hangover, we're going to have a BTSC live draft with anybody from BTSC, which is the contributors. I know the guys from Down Under want in. I know Tony's going to be there. I'll be there. We're going to try to fill those spots, and we'll have our own draft too. 2 weeks before. So we're going to have a lot of fun with mock drafts and a lot of fun. And then I'm going to throw in an article afterwards showing who was right and who was wrong. And you'll see how wrong we all are.
There you go. Real quick, Snowman gives us $5. He says, "Happy Easter to all. Same to you, Snowman. Take care and stay safe." Absolutely. Thank you very much for that tip. We appreciate it. Dave, final thoughts. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You guys can call me the fence rider and stuff all you want to. What I want from the Steelers in this draft is I want best player, regardless of position, to be taken in the first round. And then all the rest of your picks are players to fill positions more of need because you can get such a high quality player in round 1. That's what I want more than anything. That's my point is I want the Steelers to be free to do that. And still that's their job to then know that they can take anyone they want in the first round, not have to reach to get this amazing guy right there. And know that they have options for other positions at other points. So that's what I'm hoping. And hopefully hopefully or not, it will, if it's also a position of need, like running back, or as Brian says, inside linebacker, then that's great. But I'm sorry, but if you get one of the quarterbacks dropping to you 24, you want to be able to pull that trigger.
Very well said. For me, it's just going to be some house cleaning items here. A lot of people ask all the time how they can help the program without giving, specific money, like monetary donations, which you don't have to do, the super chats. If you follow us on YouTube, so go to youtube.com, search BTSC Steelers Radio, subscribe, set up the notification so you know when all of our shows go out. Like the shows, costs you nothing. Okay, just like the shows, it does help. Also, wherever you listen to podcasts, if it's on iTunes, we ask that you subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a good comment. Like, for instance, this past week, we got this one from, I don't even know how to say this name.
But I read it already.
Legitimately the best Steelers podcast. This person says they say Steeler fans tend to be more knowledgeable than the average, but the folks that run this podcast are phenomenal. Their knowledge and passion is awesome to experience. I highly recommend this podcast to anyone who has a slight interest in football and the Steelers. Those comments, I can't stress this enough, really do help. It helps with exposure, especially on iTunes, and it really does help, and it costs nothing. So if you're a Spotify person, follow. Make sure that you're keeping tabs on all of our audio. I don't know if you've ever listened to my Let's Ride podcast or Dave Stat Geek or Deputy Editor Michael Beck's Live Mike on Tuesday morning. They're only on our audio side, so go check them out. We appreciate it. Last but not least, the Pirates won their opener today. They beat the Cubbies. They're going undefeated. They're going
Brian.
Brian Hayes, yeah. And the Penguins beat the Bruins tonight. It's a great night. I'm going to go enjoy it. Hope you all have a great week. Have a happy Easter, guys. And remember that we'll be back next week to talk about more Steelers stuff. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
Best way to end it. Have a